Some days felt like they just happened to me. I would wake up early, but somehow still feel behind. The hours would slip through my fingers. Laundry, errands, appointments, a few phone calls, dishes again. And by evening, I couldn't even remember what I did, only that I was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, the kind that comes from living without a rhythm. I wasn't looking for a miracle. I just wanted to feel like my time was mine again. To go through a day and know where it went. To sit down without guilt. To rest without feeling like I was falling behind on something else. And then I tried something so simple, I almost dismissed it. The 8 + 8 + 8 rule. 8 hours for rest. 8 for meaningful activity. 8 for personal care, home, and connection. It wasn't about strict schedules or squeezing more into the day. It was about giving equal weight to the parts of life that truly matter. And when I began to live by it, even in small steps, it felt like I had finally come home to myself. Let me show you how this one simple rhythm helped me reclaim balance, peace, and purpose. In a way I didn't know I was missing. 1. The gentle power of the 8 + 8 + 8 rule. I wasn't looking for a system. I just wanted my days to stop feeling like a blur. Something to help me breathe again. For the longest time, I thought being constantly busy meant I was doing things right. I kept pushing through, thinking I could catch up eventually. But the truth is, there's no catching up when you never stop to rest. Then I heard about something called the 8 + 8 + 8 rule. It sounded almost too simple. 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for meaningful activity, and 8 hours for personal care and connection. That's it. Nothing fancy. No apps, no planners, no color-coded charts. Just time, divided with intention. At first I thought, well, that sounds nice, but my life doesn't work like that. But the more I sat with it, the more I realized this wasn't about perfect balance. It was about recognizing what matters and giving it space to exist. It reminded me of the way we used to divide a pie when company came over. You didn't give everything to one person. You made sure everyone got a fair slice. This rule is like that, but for your time, your energy, your peace. When I started thinking of my day in thirds, I stopped seeing rest as lazy. I stopped treating personal time like a luxury I had to earn. And I stopped letting chores and stress steal from every corner of my life. It wasn't magic, but it felt like a miracle. Because for the first time in a long while, I began to feel balanced. 2. Where did my time go? Before I could make any changes, I had to face something uncomfortable. I didn't really know where my time was going. I knew I felt rushed. I knew I was always tired. But if you had asked me to explain how I spent a typical Tuesday, I probably couldn't tell you. So I did something I hadn't done since I was a teenager learning to budget. Except this time, it was with hours instead of dollars. I took a notebook and tracked 3 full days of my life. Every hour, I wrote down what I was doing, not what I planned to do, or what I told myself I should be doing, but what I actually did. And let me tell you, it was eye-opening. I thought I spent at least an hour a day cleaning. Turns out, it was more like 15 minutes, scattered between distractions. I believed I was sleeping 8 hours, but I was only getting 6.5, with late nights and early wake-ups. I thought I had no time for myself, but somehow, I still found time to scroll on my phone for nearly 2 hours. None of this made me feel guilty. It made me feel aware. It's hard to fix what you can't see, but once you see it, you can start making choices instead of just reacting. That little notebook became my mirror. It showed me where I was giving too much and where I was barely giving at all. It helped me stop lying to myself in the kindest way, and that honesty became the foundation for everything that came next. 3. Protecting my sleep like a treasure. Sleep was always the thing I gave away first. If someone needed help late at night, I said yes. If I needed time to finish the laundry, I stayed up. And if I was too wired to sleep, I'd scroll through my phone until my eyes burned. Then I'd wake up groggy, frustrated, and wonder why I couldn't keep up during the day. The truth is, no one ever taught me to honor sleep. It was something to squeeze in when everything else was done. But once I started learning about what really happens when we sleep, everything changed. Did you know our brains actually clean themselves while we sleep? It's called glymphatic flow. Think of it like a gentle overnight housekeeper for your mind, washing away the mental clutter so you can wake up clear and focused. Without deep rest, that housekeeper never shows up. I began treating my evenings like a ritual, not an afterthought. No bright lights, no screens, just soft music, a warm drink, maybe a few pages of a book. I started going to bed at the same time every night, even on weekends. It felt strange at first, almost selfish. But soon, it became something sacred. Now, when I wake up, I don't feel like I'm dragging myself through the morning. I feel like I've returned from something healing. Sleep is no longer a leftover. It's the foundation. And when it's solid, the rest of my day stands taller. 4. Making the most of my active hours. There was a time I thought being busy meant being useful. If I could just keep moving, folding, wiping, calling, cooking, I could fall into bed at night and feel like I'd done enough. But the truth is, I was always doing something, yet rarely finishing anything. And worse, I was giving my energy away to the loudest thing in front of me, not the thing that mattered most. That's where the second 8 in the 8+8+8 rule changed the way I saw my day. 8 hours for work, contribution, or purposeful activity. It doesn't have to mean a job or income. For some of us, it's volunteering. For others, it's helping family, tending a garden, or learning something new. The key isn't what you do, it's how you do it. I started by asking myself, what gives me a sense of purpose? The answer surprised me. It wasn't big, dramatic things. It was the quiet satisfaction of cooking a nourishing meal, helping my neighbor sort her medications, or finally finishing that sewing project I'd left untouched for months. To make the most of these hours, I had to stop multitasking. I used to clean while taking calls, cook while half watching the news, or answer texts in the middle of a conversation. But splitting my attention only left me feeling scattered and drained. Now, I give tasks my full presence, even the small ones. If I'm doing laundry, I focus on that, feeling the fabric, appreciating the rhythm. If I'm writing a card to a friend, I do it with my whole heart. I use a simple notepad to outline my top 3 priorities each morning. Nothing fancy, just 3 things I want to complete with care. Another change? I've learned to honor breaks. A cup of tea on the porch, 5 minutes to stretch, or just a quiet moment to breathe. These are not interruptions. They're part of the rhythm. I used to power through exhaustion, thinking that's what strength looked like. Now, I see strength in knowing when to pause. My active hours are no longer about staying busy. They're about staying connected to what matters. And when I move through those 8 hours with purpose instead of pressure, everything else in my day feels lighter. 5. Filling my personal time with joy, not leftovers. The last 8 in the rule, the one for personal time, is the one I used to overlook. I treated it like a bonus hour I could maybe enjoy after everything else was done. But, as you probably know, that moment rarely comes. There's always something else to tend to, someone else to help. For years, I poured myself out for everyone else, my children, my partner, my community. I don't regret that, but I also didn't realize that I was letting my own joy, rest, and connection become leftovers. And leftovers don't nourish the soul. That started to shift the day I asked myself a simple but painful question. When was the last time I did something just because it made me feel alive? I couldn't answer right away, so I made a promise. No more waiting until everything was perfect to do the things that bring me joy. I now treat personal time as sacred, not selfish, sacred. That means giving myself permission to take a walk in the afternoon sun, even if the dishes aren't done. It means calling my sister just to laugh, not to coordinate a holiday meal. It means sitting quietly with a cup of coffee and a good book, not because I earned it, but because I deserve it. I began breaking this time into gentle categories. Time for my home, light cleaning, small touches that make it feel warm. Time for my body, stretching, walking, dancing to old songs in the kitchen. Time for relationships, calls, shared meals, even handwritten letters. And time for pure joy, puzzles, music, art, prayer, nature. One thing that helped? Creating tiny routines. 15 minutes each morning to tidy the living room, a walk before dinner, a candle lit every evening while I journal. Nothing grand, just signals to my soul that I matter too. And perhaps the biggest shift of all was learning to be present. No phone in hand while I'm with someone I love. No television droning in the background while I try to rest. Just attention. Real, undivided attention. That attention turned ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. And those 8 hours became the beating heart of my day, not what's left over, but what brings me back to life. 6. Systems, not just to goals. I used to be a big list maker. I had sticky notes on the fridge, notebooks full of intentions, calendars with the best of plans. But somehow, things kept falling through the cracks. I'd start strong and then drift. The energy would fade, and that familiar feeling would creep back in, the one that whispered, "You never follow through." It wasn't until much later that I learned, the problem wasn't me. It was the way I approached change. Goals are important, yes, but they don't work without systems. A goal says, I want to clean my house every week. A system says, I'll spend 15 minutes each day resetting one room. The first sounds ambitious. The second actually works. I started thinking in systems, not goals. And that's when things finally began to shift. Instead of saying, I wanted better sleep, I built a system. Lights dimmed by 8 o'clock, tea by 8:15, phone turned off, in bed by 9. Instead of saying, I'd be more productive, I made a system. 3 priorities each day, 1 hour of focused work in the morning, no multitasking. Instead of saying, I'd be more connected with loved ones, I created weekly rhythms. Sunday calls, Wednesday walks, handwritten letters once a month. These systems didn't rely on motivation, which can be so fleeting, especially when life gets heavy, or the weather turns, or the emotions rise. Systems rely on rhythm. They work with you, not against you. The magic is in the consistency. Small, repeated actions that build trust, not just in the process, but in yourself. Every time I followed a system, no matter how small, I felt like I was keeping a promise to myself. And that feeling? It adds up. It turns into confidence, peace, and momentum. Now I no longer write long wish lists for the month. I write rhythms, simple flows that I can return to, adjust, and keep following even when life throws its curveballs. And the best part? Systems are gentle. They don't punish you for missing a day. They just welcome you back the next. 7. The magic of micro habits. For most of my life, I believed change had to be big to be meaningful. A full diet plan, a total closet overhaul, a brand new morning routine with 5 steps and 3 alarms. And every time I tried something like that, I would last a few days, maybe a week, before quietly slipping back into the old ways. Not because I was weak, but because it was too much, too fast, and too far from what my life actually looked like. Then I learned something that changed everything. Real change starts small. So small, it almost feels silly. They call them micro habits, tiny actions you can do in less than 2 minutes, every day, without excuses. Things so easy, your brain can't talk you out of them. At first I laughed. What good could 2 minutes possibly do? But then I tried it. I started by making my bed every morning. Just that. One small win to begin the day. And the feeling that came with it? Control. Clarity. Like I was already on my own side. Then I added another, brushing my hair and smiling at myself in the mirror, even if I didn't feel like it. It reminded me that I was still here, still worthy of kindness. Later, I stacked micro habits. After I make coffee, I stretch for 30 seconds. After I turn off the kitchen light at night, I speak one thing I'm grateful for. After I check the mailbox, I water one plant. The beauty of micro habits is that they grow. When you stretch for 30 seconds, you often keep going. When you write down one task, you might complete 2 or 3, because once you begin, momentum builds. The hardest part is starting, and micro habits make starting effortless. They also remove shame. You're no longer setting yourself up for failure with massive expectations. You're setting yourself up to show up in tiny, meaningful ways. And that changes everything. Now, instead of waiting for motivation, I lean on rhythm. I don't need to feel inspired to light a candle at bedtime. I just do it. And that one little flame reminds me, I'm building something beautiful. One breath, one moment, one step at a time. 8. Saying no without guilt. I used to say yes to almost everything. A last-minute request, a favor, an extra task, especially when it came from someone I cared about. It felt easier to say yes than to explain why I needed to say no. And honestly, I didn't feel like I had the right to say no. I wasn't working full-time anymore. I had more free time, didn't I? But what I didn't realize was that every yes I gave away without thinking was a quiet no to myself. I'd say yes to a volunteer shift and miss my afternoon walk. I'd say yes to a phone call when I really needed silence. I'd say yes to watching the grandkids 3 days in a row and find myself too exhausted to enjoy the 4th. There's no shame in wanting to help, but there's harm in always saying yes out of guilt or fear. It took me a long time to learn that no isn't unkind. No is a boundary, and boundaries protect what matters most: our time, our energy, our health. I started by practicing simple, honest responses. I'd love to, but I need to rest today. That sounds lovely, but this week is already full for me. I want to give you my full attention, and I just can't right now. Can we try another time? To my surprise, most people understood, and the ones who didn't? That told me something too. One technique that helped me was the kind sandwich. Start with something warm, then the boundary, then an optional suggestion. Like this: I really appreciate you thinking of me. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, but I hope it goes beautifully, and I'd love to hear how it went. Setting boundaries also meant looking inward. I began asking myself, is this request aligned with what I truly value right now? If it wasn't, I gave myself permission to say no without apology. And here's what happened. My life got quieter. My time opened up. And in that space, I began to rediscover parts of myself I hadn't visited in years. Saying no didn't make me selfish. It made me softer, kinder, more whole. because I was finally treating my energy like something worth protecting. 9. The theme day technique that saved my sanity. One of the biggest changes I made was also one of the simplest. I stopped making so many decisions, not because they were hard, but because they were constant. Every day felt like a game of mental ping pong. Should I clean the fridge today? Or call the doctor? What about laundry? Or maybe I should organize the drawer. All of those small choices added up to one big feeling: exhaustion. Then I heard about something called theme days, a technique where you assign a general theme to each day of the week. That way, you wake up knowing what the day is for, instead of scrambling to figure it out. I tried it. Monday became home day, light cleaning, laundry, grocery planning. Tuesday became errand day, appointments, pharmacy, bank runs. Wednesday was paper day, bills, paperwork, emails. Thursday, connection day, calls, visits, catching up. Friday was project day, creative time or home organizing. Saturday was flex day. And Sunday? That was sacred, rest day. It wasn't strict. I still had freedom to shift things around. But this simple rhythm quieted my mind more than I ever expected. No more decision fatigue. No more guilt for not doing everything every day. Just a sense of clarity. This is what today is for. And the best part? My energy returned. When my brain wasn't stuck in constant planning mode, I had more space for presence, joy, and calm. Theme days gave my week a natural rhythm, like the old days when Sunday meant church, and Friday meant fish, and Saturday meant sweeping the porch. It felt familiar, grounded, like life had shape again. If your days are starting to blur, try giving them names. Not for control, but for peace. A peaceful day has a purpose, and a peaceful week? That's the beginning of a beautiful life. 10. The weekly check-in, a ritual of renewal. There's a quiet kind of strength in looking back, not to dwell, but to understand. Every Sunday evening, I sit down with a notebook and a warm drink, and I ask myself how the week really felt. Not how many things I crossed off my list, not how busy I was, but how I moved through my days. Was I grounded or rushing? Did I breathe, or did I hold my breath through it all? This is my weekly check-in, not a meeting, not a chore, a conversation with myself. A ritual I now treat with the same respect I once gave everyone else's schedule. I start with rest. Did I honor my sleep, or did I sacrifice it again? I no longer see sleep as a luxury. It's medicine. And when I notice patterns, too much screen time before bed, pushing too late into the night, I don't scold myself. I just adjust. Light earlier candles. Turn down the lights. Let myself return to rhythm. Then I move to work, whatever that means for me now. Purpose, focus, effort. Did I do things that truly matter? Or did I get lost in the noise again? Did I protect my energy? Did I say yes to things I meant to say no to? These questions don't accuse. They invite me to be honest, without shame. And then the hardest, most sacred part, my personal time. Did I forget myself again this week? Did I push joy to the side? Did I connect with others, with myself? Or did I rush through, hoping there'd be time for me later? That's why this hour on Sunday has become everything. It brings me back to the woman I am now, not the mother I used to be, not the caretaker I still sometimes become, but me, in this moment, still worthy of attention, care, and peace. I check my calendar, not to fill it, but to protect it. I don't want my days to happen by accident anymore. I want to live them on purpose. I set 3 gentle intentions for the week ahead. 1 for rest, 1 for contribution, 1 for joy. That's it. No overwhelm. Just a map with heart. And I always end with a celebration. Just one thing I did well. One thing I followed through on. One moment I showed up for myself. It might be something small. Getting to bed on time, calling a friend, going for a walk when I didn't feel like it. But those moments build trust. They remind me I'm capable of creating a life that feels good to live inside of. And the more I do this, the more I realize this isn't just about organization. It's not about color-coded planners or perfectly timed routines. It's about freedom. It's about knowing what matters and finally giving yourself the space to live by it. It's about feeling peace in your home, not just because the counters are clear, but because your mind is. It's about waking up and no longer dreading the day ahead, because you know it has shape and purpose and room for you in it. I used to think I needed more time, but what I really needed was a better relationship with the time I already had. The 8+8+8 rule didn't give me more hours. It gave me clarity. It gave me rhythm. And maybe most importantly, it gave me back myself. So if you're sitting here wondering where your days have gone, if you're tired, not just in your body, but in your soul, I want you to know this. It's not too late. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to begin, gently, honestly, from exactly where you are. Start by noticing how you sleep, how you move, how you feel. And then, one small step at a time, begin honoring each part of your day like it matters, because it does. You matter. Your rest matters. Your presence matters. Your game day matters. And the life you want, the peaceful, grounded, meaningful one, it doesn't start with a big change. It starts with one small, loving decision. Maybe that decision is today. Maybe it's right now.